Trump would rather be neutral and just strike a deal. The media and the people on the left in this country have blown the opportunity because this would have been a good moment for them. You know, if they really want to blast Trump and ruin his presidency and derail America, which is what they want to do, if they really wanted to do that, this might have been the moment where they could have come in and said, look at that, right in front of our eyes. He's incompetent. He doesn't get along with world leaders. J.D. Vance has to be his pit bull. Elon Musk has to be his Doge guy. Trump can't do anything for himself. Look how bad this was. They're saying that, but nobody believes it because they've been crying wolf for 10 years on Donald Trump. What we know about Donald Trump is not necessarily what we need to see with him next to Zelenskyy. And even people that don't like Trump will side with the American president over Zelenskyy. That will happen with most normal people in America. What they know is Donald Trump does things behind the scenes, and what he does in front of us is entirely different. This was a media event. They call it spray. We're going to spray. The pool's going to come in and spray. They're all going to spray shots. We're going to do video. We're going to sit here. We're going to chat for a little bit. We're going to have this little event. It's all for show. That's not what happens behind closed doors, and Americans know that. So when the left comes after Trump on this one and says, look how incompetent he is, he can't do this, they've blown their chance. They've blown their chance over the last decade by crying wolf so many times. Americans know better. Trump went out there for a photo op to brag and say, I've got this thing done, and then this happened. Well, guess what America's expecting? Trump's going to take care of this. Here's what Trump is. He has said it for years, and it was absolutely the case in the Oval Office. He's a counterpuncher. He didn't start that crap. He didn't start with Zelenskyy. Once it came up, J.D. Vance had to intervene, and then Zelenskyy started in on J.D. Vance, and now Trump is sitting there going, okay, he's a counterpuncher. He waits for it to unfold. He lets people play their cards, and then he goes back. It's what he does. This could have been really damaging to Donald Trump and his presidency, but the Democrats blew this long ago by crying wolf way, way, way too many times. Marco Rubio has said, we can't give you any security assurances right now. There are no guarantees. We need peace before there's any guarantees. And to be honest, when I look at these things, and Zelenskyy now went back home and he's telling media there that we're very, very far away from the end of the war. I don't think you are. It's getting pretty ugly right now. And what did Putin see when he watched that? You know what Putin saw? Putin said, you know what? I think I can sit in a room with Trump and Zelenskyy. I'll take this. This looks like a 50. Looks to me like Trump just wants it to be over, and he's going to be fair and open-minded, and he's got nothing to gain or lose. He just wants it to end. We don't have anything on the line here, folks. Trump's already said, we're done giving you money. That's over. So we're out of this thing. We're out. Trump could have literally just got up from that meeting, walked away, and said, it's over. Y'all figure your own mess out. You and Europe and Russia, whatever. We're done. We're out. We don't like you anymore, and we're out. Good luck to you and your life and your country. Easily he could have done that. And he didn't do it. So the Ukrainians are lucky that he didn't do it. They better get their butt to the table. I think Vladimir Putin looked at it and said, okay, I think I can sit with Trump and Zelenskyy. We'll let Trump be the go-between, and this thing's going to be fair. We will get it worked out. We'll take your thoughts if you'd like to join us on KCMO Talk Radio. Give us a holler. This is Uncanceled. I'm Kevin Kietzman. We're off to a great start this week. We are back in just a couple of minutes on KCMO Talk Radio.
From Gardner to Grain Valley, it's Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
We are back on Uncanceled. Great to be with you on this Monday. Mark Van Sickle producing and engineering again today, as he does each and every day. We'll check in with him later in the show. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to get to some KU basketball as well and some of the goings on there around the basketball program, which was really wild this weekend after they lost to Texas Tech. But right now, your phone calls, if you'd like to join us on the story everybody's talking about, and that is Trump, Zelenskyy, and J.D. Vance on Friday, 913-408-7957 is our number. We can get you right on if you want to give me a call. And we start today with Mark and Shawnee. Good morning, Mark. You're on Uncanceled. How are you today?
Good morning, Kevin. I'm doing good, and it's good to hear you back on the show. And this topic is, well, you're welcome. This topic has really got me fired up. I've been so mad when I think about the fact that Zelenskyy comes here and he meets with Chris Murphy and Democrats before he meets with Zelenskyy. And it just starts to smell really bad when you think about, why are the Democrats meeting with Zelenskyy before Trump? And then you think, and then you read in the aftermath, now we're starting to hear some stuff about Susan Rice. I really believe that this was all orchestrated. They sent Bassett there to sign the deal, and he got into an argument loud with Zelenskyy. Then they tried to sign that deal in Munich. So what the left is really clever, and I think this was clearly orchestrated to subvert the will of the people, which is 70 million who voted for Trump and his policy.
I agree with everything you said. I'm not sure I know that they're clever. Here's what they are. They're caught at this point, okay? And what they accuse Trump of is always them. The Russian interference in the election, and then how about the phone call to Zelenskyy, the Ukrainian phone call, the perfect phone call. Well, they knew what was going on there. The Biden's been making money in Ukraine forever. The Democrat politicians are all over that country. We spent hundreds of billions of dollars. You really think that the Democrats, of all the people in America, the Democrats care about Vladimir Putin and Russia, or did they see an opportunity to send $200 billion there and know that billions of it would get kicked back to them? And that's what this was. Right. This is nothing but a money grab. And Elon Musk went on the Joe Rogan podcast a few days ago, and he said something. I was going to save this for later in the podcast, but you got to hear this if you haven't heard it, Mark. He said, quote, "This is really going to get me assassinated," unquote. That's what Elon Musk said when he was talking about all the corruption he's finding in our government. Then he went on to say, "I found it to be about an 80-20 split. 80% of the money comes back to Democrats. The rest is money they control, but they throw to willing Republicans as just kind of like little, tidbits, little bones they throw to the Republicans." He said there's corrupt Republicans, but they're not orchestrating this. They're just taking the money from the Democrats. The Democrats are doing all this in USAID and all these different programs. This war is no different. The reason they are all over Zelenskyy and they want to talk to him is he knows where the bodies are buried. And the last thing they want to see is Zelenskyy caving and giving them all up, which absolutely could happen.
I agree with all that, Kevin. I just think it's pathetic, and we need to wake up and understand that the deep state, it's really deep, and it's so corrupt. And if we don't change it with Donald Trump, I don't believe we'll ever change it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any stopping Donald Trump on this. Thanks for the call. Great job, Mark. Appreciate you. I don't think there's any stopping Trump on this issue. He's got he has the best card in the deck. Okay, he's got the Joker. He's got the wild card in the deck. And you know what that wild card is? We're out. We're out. We're done. We're done here. There's nothing to see. We're out. Y'all figure your own mess out. We don't care. We have a big, beautiful ocean between us. Knock yourself out. And guess what? The last thing that's going to happen, if Trump pulls out, is Russia's going to do something to us. That ain't going to happen. And from the looks of it, if they can't take Ukraine in however many years this has been, are we really worried about them taking us? Like when I was a kid growing up, we did these fallout shelter drills. Oh, the Soviet Union, they're going to bomb us, blow us all up, and take over our country. Are we really worried that anybody is going to kill that many people in a traditional war? I worry about terrorists. I worry about cartels. I worry about mass shootings at schools. There's a lot of things I worry about. Russia lobbing a nuke at us is not one of them. It just isn't. And if Trump just pulls back and says, you know what, the best deal for me to make right now is I got things I'm dealing with here. We just got 29 cartel leaders last week. The biggest collection of cartel leaders we've ever gotten. We got them from the Mexican government, and we brought them to the United States. How did that happen? That's Trump. That's Marco Rubio. That's Kash Patel. That's all the moves he's making. We got 29 cartel leaders from Mexico. Is that more important, or is the border in Ukraine more important? That's an easy one for me to answer. It's a very simple one. We live here. That's our border. It's only a few hundred miles away. This stuff doesn't need to be so complicated. The beauty of Trump and the reason people like voting for him is he simplifies it all. And when he's sitting there sort of being neutral or looking like, you know what, I don't really like you, Zelenskyy, either. What he's saying to both these guys is you're both bad actors. There's no winner here. You're both bad. So the best thing that can happen with two bad people that are not going to get overthrown in their own country because they're jailing their opponents or killing them, they're not going to get overthrown in their own country. The best thing that we can do with these people is just be neutral. And maybe America needs to look at this differently. Maybe they will. I don't think America's going to accept Zelenskyy at all. I think at this point, they're looking at this thing. Most Americans are looking at it like, what a douchey little guy. Rolled in there in his looked like he was wearing an Arizona State pullover. That thing looks like the Arizona State logo that he has on there. And he just looks terrible. And then he acts poorly. Americans will not put up for that. They won't. Even if they don't like Donald Trump, they love America, and they will not put up with that. If you'd like to join us, our number is 913-408-7957. I'm Kevin Kietzman. This is Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio.
Call Kevin Kietzman, 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
Welcome back to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio. I'm Kevin Kietzman on a Monday morning in a wild weekend of college basketball. This weekend saw the Kansas Jayhawks lose again. They've had a non-Kansas season. So to put this in perspective, this segment will not really be about basketball or sports. So hang in there with me. It's about something much bigger in our society that I don't know whether we either need to work on fixing or the way to fix it is to completely ignore it. If the way to completely fix it is to ignore it, that makes me complicit in this because I'm bringing it up and I'm talking about it. But I'm not sure we're at the point now quite yet where we can just ignore it and it will go away. Kansas lost to Texas Tech on Saturday. They made mistakes down the stretch. It was if you're a Kansas fan, it was the most frustrating thing ever. If you thought you were frustrated as a Chiefs fan watching them get just slaughtered in the Super Bowl, this was not that. Kansas was down 11. They came back. They got the game tied. They had chances to win. They got a couple steals late. They got the ball down 3 with a chance to hit a shot, tie the game. They just don't make clutch plays like Kansas teams normally do. So it's an off season. That being said, they're still a good basketball team. They're 19-10. They're 10-8 in the Big 12. They're going to the NCAA tournament easily. Most of their good wins were early this year. But as they're losing late and not playing well, Kansas fans are frustrated. And Kansas has benefited greatly through the years, through the decades of being on television all the time. It's basically an infomercial for the school. Kansas goes on, beats the living daylights out of K-State or Missouri, whoever it is. They show the fans at Allen Fieldhouse, all the crazies. This is the greatest thing on, hey, baby. It's just an infomercial. For one, that's why all the kids from Chicago want to go there and St. Louis and all these places, they want to go to Kansas. Dang it, that looks fun. Well, what comes around goes around. And so now that they're having trouble this year and they're losing games at home, and a lot of them are dramatic at the end of games, they're showing students in the stands crying, face in their hands, all this other stuff. It just looks awful for Kansas. It looks so unfun and different. But for the rest of the country, it's like the Chiefs losing. People are watching Kansas lose, and they're going, oh, look at this. That's kind of interesting. So that happens on Saturday, and it's ugly, and it's a terrible moment for Kansas fans, and they can't handle it. Zeke Mayo did not play well. He's a player who played very well early this year for Kansas, but is not playing well late. And he winds up posting on social media, you can blame this on me if you want. I've got to do better. I was terrible. He basically said he was beyond pitiful was the word he used. Blame me, all these things. And they did, and they had. And some of the things that were happening was somebody posted KYS to him on social media. That stands for kill yourself. Another person, allegedly, it's been deleted now, posted racial slurs with the N-word towards Zeke Mayo, which led to the athletic director, Travis Goff, after the game on Saturday, putting a nice post up on X that said, these are not Jayhawk fans. I know KU Nation and KU fans, and Goff believes it is sore losing gamblers that are posting this stuff. People that maybe bet on Zeke Mayo to score a certain amount of points early in the year, made a lot of money, and now he's not, and they're losing money. Or just flat out people who are betting on Kansas and losing, that have bet on Kansas traditionally and losing this year. But to bust out the N-word or to tell somebody to kill yourself clearly falls under free speech. We can't sit here and say you can't do that in America. If you threaten someone, if you threaten to harm or kill someone, that's a crime. But KYS, kill yourself, I don't know if that's a crime. And I know that calling somebody the N-word is not a crime. And I know this about basketball fans. If these are basketball fans, and I give it about a 10% chance these were KU fans. I don't put much into that. I don't look, there are crazy fans. It absolutely could be a Kansas fan. It could be a Duke fan for all we know. It could be somebody out there that just hates Kansas doing this.
And these people did not have very many followers on their social media.
No. And there's no way to track them down and figure out really who they are. And Travis Goff is onto something too. Gambling's changing it. The other thing, Mark, that's really important here is, and I firmly believe this, these are now no longer college athletes. They're not college kids. They're all 18 and older, and they're all paid. So these are professional athletes. And for me, I spent my 25 years in sports radio saying, I'm going to take it a little easy on the kid. He's there for college tuition, and I don't know if he's a pro or not, whatever. We treated them differently than professional athletes. Mm-hmm. That's gone. They're absolutely professional athletes at this point, and you're going to get that. But you know where I'm going with this. It led to Bill Self putting a statement out that I thought It was not a mistake. Bill Self said, look, if you got a problem with the team, you blame me. Say anything you want about me, but leave my players alone. That would have been enough, but that statement was really long, and I think that's what propelled this to become a national story on all the websites. And people are talking about Kansas basketball and race, and nobody wants that, and I don't think Kansas deserves that, but it's happening, and you know what happens when sports reporters across the country get a hold of a race story. They're going to run with it. I just don't know what you do to get out of this thing at this point. It happened. I don't think it was organic. It could have been planted. It could have been a Kansas fan, but it doesn't seem that likely that if you love your team, you're going to bust out the N-word or tell a player on your team to kill themselves. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, I don't think so. And at the very end of the game, there was a kind of a bad call by the refs, and they started throwing some stuff on the floor. I'd never seen that at Kansas before, but that was not directed at the players. That was at the refs.
Right. And we look, societies change. We're not the happiest country. We're not the happiest people on earth right now. We're not. There's a lot going on out there, and people feel more involved in these sporting events now than ever before. Like, I can do this or I can do that. And in Kansas, same with the Chiefs. I don't know who threw the stuff on the floor. It didn't appear to me that it came out of the student section. You're risking a lot if you're a student and you throw something on the floor because you ain't getting back in.
You're going to get banned.
Yeah, you're going to get banned, and that's going to be a terrible thing. Most of the people other that are not season ticket holders, okay, sitting there are either guests of a season ticket holder who can tend to do really stupid things, or people that buy their tickets in a secondary market. They go to Tickets for Less, whatever. Hey, Allen Fieldhouse on my bucket list. I want to go. I've never been, whatever. And those people go. Who knows what they do at games? I don't know. I don't know how to respond to this. My gut tells me Kansas is getting something right now it doesn't deserve and it didn't earn, that they didn't do anything other than not play great. And if the cardinal sin at Kansas is you can't have a season where you're maybe a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament, we've lost our way in sports. I'll tell you this right now. At some point, Patrick Mahomes is going to be a wild card, okay? There will be a time when Patrick Mahomes does not win the division. It's coming, and it's likely sooner than later. And when that happens, that's okay. Let's take our Chiefs team as a wild card, and let's go to the playoffs and see what happens. And if the next year they don't make the playoffs, okay, maybe Andy Reid retires. We got to find a new coach. We'll figure it out. Nothing stays forever, and there seems to be this devastation around Kansas basketball, like
entitlement.
They really are. I don't like that word.
Yeah,
maybe expectations better. I don't think they're entitled. So many young Kansas fans don't know anything different other than being a 1 seed and excellent and winning the Big 12. They don't know anything different. And now Houston's the bully in the league, and it's unsettling. I get that, but what's really most surprising to me is, and I've said this for a long time. I said I don't know when it's going to happen. But there's going to be a time when Kansas isn't Kansas because it happens everywhere. I mean, it happened to Notre Dame football. It happened to Duke basketball, right? Okay, Krzyzewski missed 1 season. They were terrible. Then he retires. They're not the same. North Carolina's not the same. Kentucky's not the same. UCLA and Indiana are nothing compared to what they once were. Everything in sports changes. Alabama, Dennis Franchione one time was the head coach at Alabama. I covered him at Pittsburgh State in the 80s. He was overwhelmed by the Alabama job. He was the head coach. And I think one year he might have gone like 8-4 or something, but that wasn't good enough. And he got fired. Nebraska used to fire coaches that go 9-3. You got to be careful. You cannot think just because the name on your jersey in sports that we're going to be number 1 in the country and this is going to be easy. Now, this was a particularly hard year because they were preseason number 1. But Mark, you'll agree with me on this. Sports writers sometimes don't know how to vote in a poll. I went blindly for 15 years. When the Big 12 poll would come every year, I just wrote Kansas down. I didn't need to know anything about any other team. I put Kansas 1.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that happened this year, don't you?
Probably. And same with the preseason. I mean, they were AP preseason number 1. And
right.
Yeah, it's just like you think that they're going to be better than they are because they had some guys coming back, but you never know how it's going to work with the transfer portal and their new guys blending together. Just didn't go how they thought it would.
Well, this is a real story, and it's a big story, and we see angry people all over the place. I'd hate to think that I would ever be friends with or know somebody that posted KYS at an athlete or used the N-word. It's despicable. I don't give it much of a chance that it's a Kansas fan. I can't explain where it came from. There's a lot of Kansas haters. I mean, if somebody did that to Mahomes, you would not. If somebody did that to Mahomes after the Super Bowl, there is no way you would really believe that was a Chiefs fan.
Oh, yeah.
No chance. You'd think, I was a Raider fan or, somebody just a hater out there doing whatever and trying to get away with it. But There's anger everywhere. Roger Marshall found that out this weekend. He was in Oakley, Kansas, where a very small town, and people showed up. He was doing an event, and a bunch of organized looked like people from elsewhere because the people in Oakley didn't know who these people were. So they were from somewhere else. We don't know if they were Kansans or not. They're about as close to Colorado as they were anything else when you're in Oakley. So they could have come from Denver. Heck, I don't know. They're way closer to Denver than they are Kansas City. That much I know. Marshall only made one mistake. He handled it. He left early, which he should have done, but he stayed longer than he probably should have. He did make a comment, or his office released a statement that said something like, real Kansans love Trump and no blah, blah. No, everyone's a real Kansan. Even if they have pink hair, nose rings, tattoos everywhere, they have a mask on, and some kind of 1970s little jogger shorts all the way up their crack, okay? Those people are Kansans too, in their own weird way. They like to hang out outside abortion clinics, churches, and GOP rallies. That's where they go. It's who they are. It's what they do. We know those people. They were not there to see the Fick fossil in History Museum, which, by the way, I'm told is pretty cool if you like fossils. If you're into fossils, Oakley, Kansas is the place to go. Who knew? Fick was a woman's name. She was an artist. That was her last name. And she liked to do art with fossils. And so the Fick, the name, there's Fossil and History Museum, is right there in Oakley. I'm pretty sure those people weren't there for that. I think they were there for Roger Marshall. And I hope they keep doing this, because the Democrats look worse and worse and worse every time this happens and they show up. People see them and go, that's not cutting government spending is not something worth doing this for. You can buy into it when George Floyd died. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. They're killing all the black people. We're all just going to lay down here in Minneapolis and burn the streets and take a knee, and the football players. And America bought it, just like they bought into the COVID stuff and the shot and all those things. Americans will buy it. You know what Americans will not buy? We will not buy that you hate Roger Marshall, a doctor, no less, because he wants to cut government spending. There ain't no Americans buying what those people are selling. Those people are nuts. 913-408-7957 if you'd like to be on Uncanceled. I'm Kevin Kietzman. You're on KCMO Talk Radio.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Kevin Kietzman.
Hey, we're back on Uncanceled. The Dan Bongino Show is coming up at 11 o'clock. Stick around for that one. I mentioned earlier in the broadcast that Elon Musk was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and they talked about the 80-20 split of all the money, the corruption in the government going to Democrats, and that the 20% of Republicans that are getting rich off the government are basically getting bones thrown to them by the Democrats because it appears to Elon Musk and Doge that the Democrats are controlling all of this wasted money, like all of it. They just decide where it goes. They keep 80% for themselves, keep enough Republicans like Mitch McConnell on board and Lindsey Graham, who's flipped, by the way. They've kept Lindsey Graham on board with the Russia-Ukraine war all these years, but Graham's had enough now. He did a turnaround in about a 10-day period of time. But as they had this discussion, Musk made the comment, this is really going to get me assassinated. And then Rogan started talking about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania in July, and brought this interesting topic up. And apparently there's an investigation ongoing now. That day, I haven't confirmed this. I'm going off what Joe Rogan said here. That day, that event in Butler was the only Trump rally all year that CNN streamed live. They were on it live and streaming it. And they want to see an investigation done on exactly why that was the one where CNN just happened to be live that day and how a kid had almost no footprint to track, was up on a roof in an alleged blind spot of the Secret Service. There's a lot around that. There really is. It was a fascinating conversation between the two, but I don't know that look, I would assume Elon Musk has the best security in the world, so I don't think this is a big deal. But Musk and Rogan then talked about, why are we in NATO and the United Nations? Why are we even in these organizations anymore? They're antiquated. They're old. They're archaic. They had to do with World War II. Does not appear the same threats exist that existed then. And Ukraine is not part of it. I kind of agree. Kamala Harris is in the news today. She had her picture taken by her husband, Doug, who was the second gentleman at one point, eating Doritos last night, or filling a bowl of Doritos. There was a rumor she was going to show up at the Oscars, and she did not go to the Oscars. And he said, nope, here's our pre-Oscars, no red carpet for us. She was unrecognizable. Mark, have you seen the picture of Kamala Harris filling a bowl full of Doritos?
Not yet. I'm going to look it up right now.
Everybody look it up. You won't even recognize her. She's in her kitchen. It's pretty normal. We all take pictures like that. I'm not insulting her, but it just didn't look like Kamala Harris. Crazy stuff. At the Oscars, an actor named Kieran Culkin won Best Supporting Actor. Last year, he won an Emmy Award. When he won the Emmy Award, his wife, Jazz, who he says is the love of his life, told him that if you win an Emmy, I'll give you a third child. They have 2 children. He said, I want a third child. He likes kids. She didn't want to have more kids. And she said, if you win tonight, I'll give you a kid. And so he said, great. And it was over. He had the Emmys in the parking lot with their friends. They're talking about it and goes, hey, did you hear this? She says, we can have another child now that I won this Emmy Award. And she goes, yeah, I promised him that if he won, I'd give it to him. And he goes, but what I really want is 4. I don't want 3. I want to have 4. And she goes, you win an Oscar, I'll give you a 4th. Boom. He won an Oscar last night. And they're going to, yeah. It was a really a cute moment because they do just look like they love each other and want to have children. And it was kind of a great American moment. It's like, look at these people. This is the way this is supposed to work. Mark, have you followed the Combine at all, the NFL Scouting Combine?
I have a little bit, not as much because it's not as fun watching. You know, last year we thought they'd take a wide receiver. This year they might take an offensive lineman. Not quite as fun watching those guys run the 40, but I've watched it a little bit.
All right, so for those that don't know, what they do is they take all the college athletes that are turning pro, they take them to Indianapolis, they put them on a stopwatch, they run them, they jump, they do verticals, they do all these different tests, skill tests, they practice, they do everything, football players, and then they decide where they're going to draft them. Kansas State had one of the most interesting weekends ever at the Combine. And Kansas State's my alma mater. I always get in trouble when I talk about K-State. I don't really care that much about the Combine, but this is wild. You want the good or the bad first, Mark? Because you may know where I'm going.
Let's go good first.
Okay, the good is a running back named DJ Giddens from Junction City, Kansas. He has had the 9th best Combine ever for a running back when you combine each category. The speed, the vertical, the reach, the cones, all this other stuff. That's out of nowhere. I don't think K-State fans knew that. So he's a Combine machine, which was really surprising. However, The one everybody knows is Will Howard, Ohio State's national championship winning quarterback. Who was the quarterback at K-State? He lit up social media all day this weekend, all day, for perhaps the single worst quarterback performance in the history of the scouting combine. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. One of my friends who likes K-State texted me and said that he got booed. That's how bad he did.
I have a dinner bet with Jim Colbert, who is a professional golfer, won 38 tournaments on the PGA and the Senior Tour, lives in Manhattan. And he texted me. He's like, oh, this Will Howard, if we had him this year, the Cats would be so good. I'm like, Avery Johnson's better than Will Howard. He's like, nope. He bet me at the end of the year. First of all, he said Will Howard's going to be a first-round draft choice. I almost spit up my coffee. And then I bet him dinner at a nice steakhouse that Avery Johnson will be drafted higher than Will Howard.
I like that bet for you.
I do too. And I think Will Howard, I knew that he wasn't going to be a combine machine. He's a winner, but he looks to me like one of these college quarterbacks that's a winner in college, does what his team needs to do to win a game, but doesn't really translate to the NFL. They're calling it the single worst performance in the history of the combine for an NFL quarterback. And Shane Gillis was the host of Saturday Night Live. If you haven't seen the clips, go watch it. Saturday Night Live was back, at least for this week. Thanks for listening to Uncanceled. I'm Kevin Kietzman. Dan Bongino is up next on KCMO Talk Radio.